Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the way we might need to go around framing the Brexit debate the next time it really matters, when choosing our next government in 2024. How will we judge whether Brexit has been a success or a failure? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, all very well, my pointing out on an almost daily basis how Brexit has been the disaster that was warned about, and how we're still waiting for even one benefit. Is it here? No. So we're still waiting for a single benefit to emerge, much less enough to compensate for the legion of disasters. But the problem is that you run into the issue of objectively judging the relative weight of such arguments, because you could have any number of downsides, but they might be quite minor. You might have a much smaller number of upsides, but they may be more important. So those who need Brexit to be a success, because otherwise they're having to face up to the reality that they were naive at best, believing known liars when established experts warned against it, and at worst complete dimwits. So nobody wants to have to face up to that. So in their desperation for Brexit to be a success, they will dismiss the downsides as either inconsequential or temporary. So how to objectively judge Brexit? Well, Brexit is a project. I mean, in terms of scope and impact, it's a very large project, huge, in fact. And the thing about projects is that you need a way of judging their success or failure. This is done along the lines of both impact and aims. So you identify your aims. Obviously, a project has aims, objectives. And then you check that those aims have been met. Then you need to look at the impact, both good and bad, because if you meet your aims and the wider impacts are all good, or majority are good, then the project could be considered to be a success, maybe even succeeding beyond all expectations if the wider impacts are all good. But if you've met your aims, but the wider impacts are very costly, it is still possible for the project to be a failure. For example, let's say you intend to hold a party outside of global pandemic naturally, and lots of people come and have a great time and then all go home happy to have been there. Then you have met your aims. But if you're left with a load of smashed windows, granny's ashes all over the carpet and a blocked up toilet, you might still consider the project to be an overall failure. So, the aims of Brexit. What were the aims? Now, one, it was supposed to give us the agility to negotiate trade deals that suited us. Now, this wasn't as moronic an aim as all the others, so I'll tackle it first. After all, as EU members, the Commission negotiates trade deals that are in everyone's interests. This is because each member has a veto on any deal that they, don't see as being to their advantage. The result is that what you get is compromise, so that everyone gets a good deal, everyone gets better trading arrangements than they currently have. But if you arrange your own, you don't need to, for example, have to worry about trading goods that's really important to, let's say the Portuguese economy, but not at all to our own. So that way, the idea is you can get a deal that is tailored to your export and import needs, as well as obviously the other side of that negotiating table, without having to water anything down to satisfy different economies. Now that's the theory, and it's not completely barking, however, the problem is it falls down in the most important aspect of getting a good trade deal. See, what you want is only part of the equation. Sure, if you have to satisfy more people, it may take longer. But what's more important is not so much what you want as what you can demand. Because a trade negotiation is ultimately a competitive process. It's about how much market access you can gain into the other side without giving up too much of your own. And this is an easier process if you represent a larger market. It's common sense. If you represent a huge market of, say, hundreds of millions of some of the wealthiest consumers in the world, then you can negotiate relatively limited access to your market for your goods. In other words, there's lots of rules still going to apply. Because that will still represent a lot of extra business for your negotiating partner. So in other words, if giving them smaller market access, but you've got a much larger market, it can still mean that they will get X number of billions of dollars more trade with you as a result of that trade deal. So it's still satisfactory to the other side, and they will be keen to sign up to what you want. Now, by leaving the EU, we now command a much smaller market. That means that to give the other side that X number of billions of dollars of extra business they want, we have to concede more market access. And we can see this because the government's talking up all the trade deals that it's signed since Brexit. I get comments every now and then. Oh, but Phil, dozens, over 60 trade deals they've signed. No, they haven't. Aside from the one with the EU, we've signed one. That was with Japan, and it's mostly in favour of Japan. Liz Truss, the cabinet minister responsible, has been asked multiple times by her opposite number in Labour, Emily Thornberry, to name a single benefit of the Japanese trade deal, over the one that we had with the EU, that is. And in Parliament, and she has declined to offer an answer every single time. So if the government minister responsible for that trade deal can't name a single benefit in the only trade deal that we've actually concluded, aside from the EU agreement, which still hasn't been ratified, so has it really been concluded? All of the other so-called deals were EU deals that we just copied and pasted. We didn't negotiate them as such. We just they agreed that we're okay carrying on the same basic agreement that the EU negotiated. So the theory that our increased agility would help us get better trade deals doesn't seem to be happening, because Liz Truss, she says it's a better trade deal in the press, where there's no consequences for lying, but she won't say it in Parliament. She won't say how it's better in Parliament. Now, you could argue that more time is needed for these trade deals, and I would normally agree. I mean, trade deals take a long time, absolutely. But there's a couple of things here. First of all, the government have negotiated and concluded a trade deal, but they cannot name a single aspect of it that is better than the one we had. So in other words, we've copied and pasted a load of trade deals with some countries around the world. It's still a far cry from the ones we had beforehand in terms of number, but we've got some. And then we've gone to the trouble of negotiating and signing up to a trade deal that's on worse terms. Because if it weren't on worse terms, the government would be able to say how it's on better terms, but they can't. So, yes, the whole idea has been blown out of the water just with that one. But the other thing is that the fact that the government are trying to claim that we have those benefits now, because they're talking about all these trade deals that they've signed, knowing full well they're just copied and pasted. Now, if they actually intended to sign better trade deals and it just took another year or two, then they would have no problem saying that. But they won't. They won't actually state in Parliament how any deal we have now is better than one we had with the EU. That strongly suggests that the government know they're not going to be getting any good trade deals, ever. But if people want to wait another 2 or 3 years for me to make exactly the same assessment of trade deals, I'm happy with that, not a problem, because like I said, when it is really going to be mattering is as the next general election looms. Now, the second aim was to not have to follow rules made up by others. Now, this one's too easy, isn't it? As EU members, we made the rules. As simple as that. The problem is that too many people in the UK don't see this because they always sort of thought of the UK and the EU, not the UK part of the EU. They always saw us as cuckoos, essentially, the gatecrasher, not part of the family. We only joined for that mercantile gain. So when rules were made by the EU, which included us, we were part of that rule-making process, these people saw it as rules made by foreigners, completely ignoring the British input there, and then imposed upon the UK. Now, this isn't true on two counts. Firstly, the UK was, as I say, one of the big three. Almost every single EU rule was either put forward by British politicians, or strongly supported by them. I think it works out at 3% that were not. You know, that we either didn't vote for or didn't support or didn't come up with. Now, the second way it's not true is that the EU didn't actually impose any rules on the UK, not one. Not even the ones we didn't like, which wasn't actually very many. Every law in the UK is passed in the UK by the UK Parliament in Westminster. There are some laws maybe passed by devolved parliaments as well now. There were EU laws that our Parliament refused to pass, for example, and so they never became rules in the UK. Now, I don't agree with that. I think that if you want to join a group to get the benefits of membership, then you should accept the responsibilities that go with it. But that was the reality. If our Parliament didn't pass something, it didn't take effect in the UK. And that did happen on a few areas. Whereas now, we're not only following quite a lot of those old rules that we came up with, we're actually following even more EU rules. But this time, we genuinely don't get a say anymore. Because look at all the rules that are hurting our ability to move around Europe, trade with Europe, just live in Europe if we needed to. All billed as new rules in the media, like the Daily Express, the Daily Mail and so on. But they're not new rules. They are rules that have been around for years, long-standing rules, many of which we made up, that didn't used to apply to us but do now. Because not all EU rules are for EU members. There's a hell of a lot of them that exist for third countries. The benefits of EU membership is that those rules don't apply to us, or didn't apply to us, don't apply to members. But there will be genuinely new EU rules that we didn't come up with. The EU, like all legislative bodies, will make up new rules all the time. They're doing it at the moment, they're going to carry on doing it. But now we will have no say in them at all. No part of the Parliament, Commission or Council will compromise to keep the UK happy anymore. So the reality is that we are now following way more EU rules that we're not happy with. Because before, if I asked a Brexit supporter, okay, name me an EU rule that you don't like. Name me an EU rule that harms your ability to live the way you would like to live, that wouldn't exist if we weren't EU members. I got silence. If they were allowed to talk about made-up ones like bendy bananas or prawn cocktail crisps, they didn't have anything. Now it's quite easy to name EU rules that hamper us, that affects the way we can live our lives, that we don't like. Dead easy. Remainers and leavers alike can name them. But that only came with Brexit. So it's also fair to say that this aim has been failed as well. And far from being something that might improve with time, this can only get worse. Because as time goes on, the EU will make more rules that work against our interests now that we are no longer part of that decision-making process. Then finally, one for the xenophobes. Brexit was supposed to be about stopping immigration, or at least reversing it. Except this hasn't happened either. Immigration wobbles about, 1 year goes up a bit, 1 year down a bit, but the overall trend is it's going up. Now, obviously, I can't imagine it went up really last year with the pandemic, and this year also maybe similarly depressed regardless of anything else. But before then, it had been increasing over time, even since the referendum. Now, net migration is down since the referendum. That is because of the exodus of EU citizens from the UK due to the unpleasant atmosphere that Brexit has spawned here. But immigration itself, the thing that the Brexiteers don't seem to like, has continued at pace. And do you know something else? It's going to carry on doing as soon as the pandemic allows. Again, another one, I'm more than happy to give this one time. Oh, but Priti Patel's bill, oh yeah, I'll see how that works. After all, the really important Brexit debate will be, like I said, when we're gearing up for the next general election. But at that time, if we still don't have better trade, if we're still taking rules that we didn't make, and if we still have immigration not in reverse, Will Brexit supporters still be defending the project? Or will they accept that maybe, just maybe, it hasn't quite worked out as they intended? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.